Okay. Thank you very much for introducing me, Mr. Jeffrey. So my talk will today be on this exciting and challenging topic: how to shift into a DNA with spiritual enterprise. So what I will be exploring is to reclaim the inner perspective of leadership and spiritual leadership so seldom touched upon. Ultimately, the webinar will reveal to and share with the audience uncharted territory. So it will guide you into the DNA of a spiritual enterprise of the future. So your takeaways, what we'll be tuning into. So you will be learning about a new era meaning ethical responsible action. I will touch upon spiritual and cultural renaissance. I will touch upon new models of communication, of spiritual communication. I will touch upon new modes and new models of being, new models of leadership, new models of business. I will touch upon a shift in perspective to a spiritual leadership, to a spiritual evolution, and ultimately to a spiritual transformation in business. So let's I wanted just to mention that this is an out-of-the-box presentation. I will not share any text during my presentation because I want the audience to be very focused and to be very imaginative. So each slide I will comment, and the slide will consist only of one image. So this image will trigger your imagination. And so please don't take too many notes, because after the webinar is finished, everybody will get a complete full text of my webinar. So I ask everybody to be focused and to be imaginative. So what's the overall state of our world? It's a myriad of unresolved crises, isn't it? Our globalized world is changing at a pace never encountered before. There are so many crises, challenges, chaotic structures are like a wake-up call, also and particularly for the business community. In fact, there's no time to waste anymore. Leaders worldwide have the tremendous responsibility to awaken to a new vision of themselves as beacons of light, as incubators of the human spirit, rather than factories for the production of mere material goods and services. The current state of world affairs. The rate at which our society is changing has never been as rapid as it has been in the last few decades, isn't it? And you like it or not, we too as individuals have also evolved profoundly during this time. We are living in the most exciting times, to say the least. It's not a cycle anymore, it's a real mutation, a transition, a genuine transformation. Substantial changes in societal and business culture have been largely documented over the last 2 decades. Our life conditions have changed significantly. Our lives have become busier than ever, due mainly to advancements in information technology that have created a globally networked, knowledge-based economy. These changes have produced tremendous positive improvements, yet triggered also a myriad of associated problems. We now communicate instantly within increasingly complex work environments, while at the same time managing finite resources and producing ever larger environmental impacts. Sure, our current technological enhanced world has made revolutionary progress in a lot of areas, yet has precipitated a crisis of meaning in many others, not the least in the human spirit. The root cause of this global crisis, in essence, it's the sheer crisis of the human spirit. Simplistic, so-called pragmatic goals, logic-driven analysis, management hierarchies, rigid power and control mechanisms, sheer competition, and aggressive values have become irrelevant, obsolete, and no game changers anymore. At the grassroots level, in our governments, communities, and corporations, the pressure on our time and human resources does seem to be spiraling out of control, doesn't it? Most of the leaders are pushing people, themselves included, to perform more, faster, with less. Common sense tells us that this approach is reaching its limits. Faced with ever-mounting workloads and work pressures that spill over into private lives, people are asking themselves questions that essentially are spiritual questions, such as, What do I want to achieve in and with my life? What is the purpose of my work? And what are my priorities in life? It's pretty obvious, isn't it, that also the old paradigm of business is floundering, and that the business theories that gave rise to the modern age no longer are serving companies, neither are they serving society and its citizens. So the question is, have we really run out of answers? Welcome to a new era. The acronym ERA meaning ethical responsible action. Isn't it high time to leave this overall depleted state we live in, and which we call business society, which less and less to believe in behind, to go beyond TINA? There is no alternative, and enter a new era. ERA literally meaning ethically responsible action. Isn't it highly time to go beyond today's postmodern culture of highly rationality, hallmarked by fear, nihilistic fragmentation, doubt, deconstruction, and egocentricity? Our current cultural situation is calling for individuals and enlightened business people alike, all over the globe, to transcend the fractured vision of postmodernism and eventually awaken to a transpersonal and collective spiritual ground, a higher ground of truth and conscience, a new integral holistic vision. A complete reinvention of ourselves and our business is called for, therefore. Rediscover our value of wholeness under the guidance of their inner wisdom, and operate from a broad awareness of enlightened self-interest. What is asked for is vision, flexible business cultures, attuned intuition, cooperation and co-creation, real empowerment, which means being in harmony with the workforce and allowing them to have their inner voice and co-ownership. And last but not least, spiritual values, trust, harmony, honesty, integrity, authenticity, allowing and honoring emotional intelligence, EQ, and spiritual intelligence, SQ, compassion and love. It's really only the economy stupid. That's a question that when asked often. But think again. In this third millennium, the world is driven by the economy and still ruled by big corporations. And the people of the world are still at the mercy of the economy, instead of the economy being for the benefit and in the service of the people and the greater good, isn't it? Modern economy is still characterized and driven by patriarchal behavior patterns, the need for control, competition, pursuit of omniscience, and obsessive rationality. In this third millennium, hence, the necessity for the transformation of our goals, perceptions, feelings, attitudes, behaviors, communication patterns, and values behind our judgments and decisions intensifies and is of pivotal importance. The key, a shift in consciousness and awareness. Today's economic, social, cultural, and ecological challenges can only be met powerfully and effectively through a shift in consciousness and awareness, which in fact is already well underway today. The good news is that more and more people today are becoming aware that we have fundamental challenges to overcome in our families, our emotional systems, our cities, our governments, our economic systems, our international relations, and our planetary environment, and that we must find new ways to embrace these problems. There are new models and modes of being, business, and communicating with one another are emerging and manifesting. Indeed, it's high time that each of us, leaders, followers, normal citizens alike, dare to take responsibility for themselves and others, and go beyond, from a soulless way of living, working and producing, devoid of meaningfulness, to reinventing themselves and their work altogether. New models indeed, in which each human individual is recognized for his or her unique value, and by taking responsibility for him and herself and others, everyone contributes to building a humane future. It's recovering and reclaiming the spiritual dimension of our being. Let's have the courage, the humility, and the commitment to reconnect with our most inner spiritual being. Like the quote of Rumi says, indeed, it's about time we lift the economy and leadership to a higher evolutionary level and reclaim higher ground. That's a wonderful book by one of the most innovative thinkers of our time, Lance Secretan, Reclaim Higher Ground. The excellent news is that this gloomy picture of the overall state of the world affairs is only one side of the coin. What's the flip side? Plenty of international studies and surveys clearly indicate that ever more people have downshifted. That is, that they have made a voluntary decision to change their lives in ways that reduce their incomes and spending. Sharing is shining. The ever-growing cross-currents in the hearts of the people, in the belly of society, voicing their awareness that solidarity is the real social concrete and tissue of our society, worthy of that name. The time and the glory of the great I, with the sole mantra, I, seems to come to an end. More and more people the world over are waking up as culture creatives, embracing a number of alternative strategies, such as either reducing their hours of work, changing to a lower paying job, changing careers, or stopping altogether. They make the change in order to spend more time with their families, to find personal fulfillment, to lead a more balanced life, or to look after their health. It is crystal clear that the shift towards values, that there is a shift going on towards a values-based living and moving away from sheer materialistic goals, isn't it? The sources of power and beacons of light in the future, ? It's first of all individual responsibility and bundled force, that is shared responsibility. Second, the insight and confidence that each of us in his/her unique quality contributes to that shared responsibility and creativity, all of us together. Third, therefore, a new comprehensive healing and meaning-giving view of the person and the world in which vision, empathy, depth, heart, and soul are central is due and timely, isn't it? And fourth, a society in which eventually decision makers, institutions, organizations, multinationals, SMEs, political parties, the middle class, civil society, unions, even outlaws of society and disabled people, young people, and particularly the media, join forces to face and master the many crises that paralyze us, such as financial, institutional, social, political, psychological, identity, and so on. A spiritual and cultural renaissance is called for. Indeed, let's face it, all these crises are in reality only a reflection of a much deeper crisis, the crisis of the human spirit. It's high time that we reconnect with the spiritual dimension of our being, of who we truly are, isn't it? We all are keenly aware, aren't we, of how our values have become bankrupt, including our ideological, political, cultural, moral, artistic, and even spiritual values, all of which are being eviscerated to the point where it would be fair to say that there exists an overall erosion of our societal values. Every day we are witnessing a bit more the overall erosion of our societal values, aren't we? The erosion also extends to the value of the great narratives, the various isms, including Catholicism, socialism, communism, liberalism, to name but a few. Even to the pillars of our society, democracy, change, sustainability, excellence, spirituality, citizenship, communication, and even love are more and more becoming empty words used with virtually no true meaning behind them anymore. It's well overdue to free ourselves from the worn-out habits and from our convictions in order to find new ways of seeing that are truly durable, isn't it? New ways of being are asked for. It's critically important that we create new mental maps to restore the lost paths of our human spirit, the capacity for awe, for wonder, for mystery, from art, for music, for love and compassion. In short, a search for transcendence, the sacred uplifting us and infusing it with meaning again. In essence, for a society where people come together where people live with one another and where they are not predisposed to working against one another. Shifting of our behavior and interaction patterns, also in business. A society in which individual and collective changes of mentality are going beyond a pure productive and competitive mindset can only emerge if everyone shifts his or her behavior and his or her interactions with one another. Are you are becoming yourself to the other, aren't you? And what about the value generated by global business? It can be true, and sadly true it is, that the dominance of the market that prescribes and dictates the law of our societal values has become overwhelming. So much so that the values market has now become the market value. The real added value of a renewed global business is therefore, let's combine passion and profit, so all of us can profit and prosper. The real paradigm shift. Don't you agree that the time has come to make the real paradigm shift, one that really matters, from I to we, to us, from competing with one another to working with one another, and from having to being. The only thing you can't have is kind. You can only be kind. Paradoxically, by being different, intuitive, responsible, loving and caring, you become and are yourself. And by becoming yourself, there's no energy in the world that can stop you from really networking, which means connecting with others through the heart and the soul. It's not so much making the difference, but being the difference. Isn't it? Don't you think we have done enough brainstorming and think tanking already? What about soul sharing? Sharing the most precious gift there is, you. Sharing it with all the other yous on the planet, without preconceived ideas, egocentric interests, fear-based self-focus. The key, don't think too much about doing it. Just do it and feel the blessing and the warmth inside of you by sharing. The real paradigm shift and tipping point is as easy as you can get. Learning by doing, being by sharing, and loving by shining. Being and becoming yourself. The real renaissance, the true re-enchantment of us and nature. It's about envisioning our common future by seeing with new eyes, perceiving and living the global vision, not only rationally grasping the big picture. Do I hear you counter? It's altogether naive, illusionary, impossible, only a lofty dream. But deep down in yourself and confronting yourself, owning yourself, do you really think it's naive, illusionary, impossible, only a lofty dream? Lofty dream, think again. It's real. The only thing, though, that still eludes us is a genuine global conviction, a global will, a global goodwill, a global vision, and a global action. New models of leadership. What we are witnessing in today's global societies, surely the social, collaborative, and virtual networking phenomena have far deeper implications than just changing the way we do business. They have been changing business altogether. Business is no longer hierarchical, as it still remains in the mainstream, nor is it personal, as we were keen to suggest in the 90s. Mass participation makes business social. Mass collaboration makes it communal. This is changing the nature of business and roles. While sought and welcomed, leadership in communities is intrinsically linked to narrative, task and contribution, rather than power, role and accountability. Therefore, new models of leadership and leadership effectiveness are called for. Most of the leadership models have been influenced by our understanding of the psychology of both leaders and followers. The perennial aim of leadership, ? The aim of leadership will always be to secure engagement, alignment, attunement, accountability, and commitment. What is changing is the way in which we all will be achieving these. There is no such thing as truth or reality. There is only perception. Our perspective delivers who we are and how we are. and how we are will then deliver the results we need. An energized, positive, dynamic, and compassionate perspective is far more useful state from which we shine in business, isn't it? To shine means we have to reclaim our uniqueness. We have to reclaim who we really are. Things change because people care. To really stand out, we have to know what we stand for, don't we? A really shiny business is one in which leaders make sure they notice when the people they work with are great and magical, and give them the recognition and appreciation for being so. New models of business. Already in 93, Hazel Henderson had this quote: "We are at the dawn of a new age, an age of light that lies and goes beyond the information age." The information age is no longer an adequate image for the present, let alone a guide for the future. It still focuses on hardware technologies, mass production, narrow economic models of efficiency and competition, and is more an extension of industrial ideas and methods than a new stage in human development. Information is an abundant resource rather than a scarce commodity, as in economic theory, and demands new cooperative rules from local to global levels. Information itself does not enlighten. We cannot clarify what is misinformation, disinformation, or propaganda in this media-dominated, spin-doctored environment. Focusing on mere information has led to an overload of ever less meaningful billions of bits and fragmented raw data and sound bites, rather than the search for meaningful new patterns of knowledge and wisdom. Spirituality is about exchanging energy to enhance the creative potential of each of us. On the spiritual level, abundance and not scarcity is a qualitative concept, not a quantitative one. We acquire it when no obstacle is hindering the free flow of energy within us. The spiritual evolutionary level is characterized by eternity, where the focus is not survival but inner growth. Yet, the benefits from the spiritual evolutionary level, such as serenity, love, enhanced creativity, and joy, cannot be earned. You receive them as a gift. The challenge of the spiritual level is to express the unlimited, the infinite, by means of the limited. The supreme added value of spirituality is when interconnecting through mind, heart, and soul, and learning how to empower one another, how to cooperate in symbiosis and synergy, we are bringing about a goodwill, an energy field of consciousness that not only recalls, but also manifests the spiritual power of the universe. Spiritual leadership. From this point of view, the growth created through spiritual leadership is not only more characterized by becoming bigger, accumulating ever more wealth, but by interconnecting and broadening our love and light for one another. This is qualitative and not a quantitative expansion. Shakespeare once said that the more you give, the more there will be. Wealth and love are therefore energy products that reinforce one another. It calls for reconnecting with spirituality, the inner spiritual part of our being that has been neglected and thrown out of the equation for so long. This is a great quote of Wayne Dyer, which says, "Abundance is not something we acquire, it's something we attune into." So, what's it all about? It's a shift in perspective and frequency. It's going beyond. Endowing meaning is not a matter for one's personal life, but also and just a necessary for each and every organization. Current social research unequivocally demonstrates that citizens who slowly have awakened yearn for leadership and long to become loyal to leaders who manifest credibility and confidence. Leaders who also embody the capacity not only to create order in this almost unmanageable complexity and chaos in which we find ourselves, but also to initiate the changes that are required to us. Human motivation, self-actualization, authenticity, co-creativity, spirituality. That is, so to say, spiritual leadership. Spiritual leadership grounded in the whole and going beyond, transcending all self-limiting particularities and conditioning, serves the accomplishment of the whole human being. Beyond means change in perception, the instant of a new idea, creative and disruptive. The key here is turn within. The key to this change in perspective is to turn within. Millions of people the world over are trying to transform and improve their lives. More and more become aware that the answers for a changed world are not coming from sources outside of themselves. The answers are coming from within. To discover the world, the whole world outside of us as part of us. To awaken to the myriad of potentialities latent in us and waiting to be activated and come true in our personalities. In confronting ourselves, taking responsibilities for one's own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions, one touches upon a level of awareness where one experiences a unity with all the living through love and compassion and the power of creativity. Turning within thus means a shift in attunement and perspective. It's all about attunement and resonance, isn't it? The inside is governed by resonance, affinity, and a very fine attunement. Everything is interspersed with everything else. Everything is delicately interwoven, like a net, an inner net, and not only the internet. So what is spiritual leadership? In this mode of thinking and awareness, experience has become self-discovery. It's exploring through your creative imagination what you would have been if you could have been what you might have been. With each creative act, one has the impression that suddenly one's horizon has been broadened. Limits have disappeared. Fears have been transmuted in new possibilities. Another frame of reference has emerged, which goes with an increased sense of autonomy, confidence, and marvel. This is spiritual leadership. It's also to create and to be a spiritual leader means to call upon the best in yourself with love, compassion, sensitivity, imagination, and inspiration, constantly being alert and open to which presents itself, transpires through that which appears and wants to emerge. A spiritual leader is always ready to transgress, to go beyond that which confines in order to awaken that which lifts up. Obstacles are viewed as challenges. Errors are precious information. Setbacks are viewed as opportunities to break free and true. How to create in everyday life that radiant ability for renewal, that liberty called creativity. It's not first and foremost a revolution of our perception and attunement. Yes, it is. How to create the necessary conditions for creativity and leadership to emerge in an inner openness and silence. Creativity and spiritual leadership is in essence the capability of the human being to tap into the thinking of the universe, which is the greatest miracle. Spiritual leadership is about shining, sharing, giving, unconditionally. Shining, sharing, and giving, by its very essence, inspires others to be more and to do more. Shining, sharing, and giving increases the leader's influence over people exponentially, and conversely, her leadership potentially increases as well. It's a spiritual revolution we are experiencing, and which is called for. What are we getting on the daily news? Correct. The world is caught up in the grip of fear, selfishness, instability, uncertainty, pure egoism, navel-gazing, perception, exclusion, and hypocrisy, and lately fake news and post-truth. It is pretty obvious that we are experiencing a global crisis of meaningfulness, isn't it? The excellent news, though, is that more and more people all over the world are awakening, picking up and getting attuned to new vibrations and energies, and building a cross-current towards a genuine revaluing and resourcing of all that values mentioned. Our company, Global Visioning Sharing.net, is fully dedicated to ride the tide of this emerging spiritual revolution. Global Visioning Sharing.net is totally committed and dedicated to its vision and honoring diversity as opportunity and to produce synergistic results. In order to get along with the business of human existence, we ought to learn how to get along with each other, aren't we? Becoming responsible for a whole larger than ourselves, we ought to learn how to retain our own integrity without insisting that others forsake their own. Our company stands for a new vision, a spiritual transformation. Cultural values are more than ever one of the key motivational levers in high-performing companies. Global Vision Sharing.net is convinced that in order to transform and optimize organizational performance, a spiritual transformation of the individuals within the organization is required. Therefore, all GVS products and services are based on a movement toward a values-based culture and leadership, with a strong emphasis on personal development and fulfillment. We are at a time in history when we need to revise our entire view of ourselves, the nature of our work, and the leadership of organization. What a great and challenging opportunity, isn't it? Spiritual transformation also in business. Global Vision Sharing.net has therefore set out to share its most challenging and innovative flagship product called Spiritual Transformation in Business, STB, with the global business community and roll it out worldwide for the greater good of humanity. We already organized 2 big conferences in Budapest and Eindhoven in the Netherlands in 2016 to address this topic with a great success. So I will end this presentation by mentioning a few topics that are accountable to shifting into the DNA of a spiritual enterprise. An enterprise is a living body and a bundle of energies working and co-creating together. A spiritual enterprise is geared to serve a higher purpose. And what is the DNA of a spiritual enterprise? It's outsourcing plus insourcing, meaning tapping into your own source. It's creating added value plus living and manifesting intrinsic value. It's shifting beyond the mere corporation to an incorporation. Incorporate and embody what is asked for. It's vision, flexible business cultures, attuned intuition, cooperation and co-creation, real empowerment, which means being in harmony with the workforce and allowing them to have their work, their voice and co-ownership. And last but not least, spiritual values like trust, harmony, honesty, integrity, authenticity, allowing, honoring, emotional intelligence, and spiritual intelligence, compassion, and love. And lastly, the DNA of spiritual enterprise is to go beyond the 3 P's, the usual 3 P's, and align presence, passion, patience, people, perseverance, planet, profit, purposefulness, and peace. And let me end this presentation with 3 quotes. One of them is a poem of Lao Tzu, and another quote is from Gandhi, and the last quote is from a Hungarian poet, Sándor Vörös. The first quote from Lao Tzu goes as follows: "There is no need to run outside for better seeing, nor to peer from a window. Rather abide at the center of your being. For the moment you leave it, the less you learn. Search your heart and see if he is wise who takes each turn. The way to do is to be." The quote from Gandhi goes as follows: "Our real power does not lie in our ability to change the world, but in that of being able to recreate ourselves." And the last quote from the Hungarian poet Sándor Vörös: "To become a genuine human being, the essence of who you are, turn within. Explore your depths and trans-illuminate yourself, and then radiate your inner light on those around you and your environment. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Well, thank you very much, folks. Now we are open for the question and answer. So if you have any questions, you could either insert it in the question box, or you could equally raise your hand. There's a hand icon available on the console, so please click on it if you want to speak directly with the speaker. We have a couple of questions already posted in the box, so let me go with the first one from Mr. Paul Gracely. The question is, thank you very much. I think of a spiritual leader as a person who thinks of themselves as a leader who serves others while nurturing the organizations that they lead. What are some practical ways that we can spiritually serve and nurture the people who we lead?
I touched upon this during my presentation. I think that what is asked for is a reinventing of ourselves. So every leader has to question himself as a leader, and not anymore be the person who knows everything and who gives orders and wants to control. So in order to allow people to be themselves and to express their meaning and their inner passion, that's the real lever of leadership. That's rekindle the passion and rekindle the confidence in people, because people are the working force is a wonderful and a great asset to our community, because the people are producing the goods and services which are then sold on the market. So if these people are content and they are passionate and about what they are doing, then they can achieve more and they will contribute more to the society and to the enterprise which they are serving.
Thank you very much. And we have another caller who's raised a hand, so let me see if we can unmute him and can talk to him. We have Brother Saleh Salman Al-Ghamidi. I'm trying to unmute you, but apparently you have muted yourself. So let me see if I can unmute you. Okay, here you go. Can you unmute yourself, Brother Saleh? You have self-muted yourself, Brother Saleh Al-Ghamidi. I'm trying to unmute you. Okay, here you go. Brother Saleh, can you hear us? Could you please ask the question and introduce yourself?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. What are the similarities between your work and the work of Dalai Lama?
That's a very good question, sir. And as a matter of fact, I was Director General of the Club of Budapest for 6 years in Hungary, from 1903 to 1999. And the honorary member, one of the honorary members of our board was the Dalai Lama. So I know the Dalai Lama very well. And what he's doing is exactly what we are trying to introduce into business community. He stresses the compassionate way of being and the loving kindness of being. And I had the privilege to be at a conference he gave last September in Brussels, the Mind Life Conference. It was a three-day conference, and with 2,000 people in the room, and he stressed that very much so compassion and tenderness and so the so-called soft values are very much needed also in the business world, because what we're experiencing nowadays is stress, is burnout. It's people who are not satisfied with their work, who are stressed out, and this has to change, because there's so much energy that goes lost. So to answer your question, our company is fully aligned with what the Dalai Lama says and does worldwide.
Thank you very much for a powerful webinar.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Brother Saleh Al-Ghamidi, for asking the question. Now let me move to another question in the box. We have from Mr. Patrick Rupin. The question is, the concept is clear. Can we have a few practical examples, a business case study, if you could quote.
Yes, you can, but we spend 4 or 5 years to lay the ground of this great company, and this organization, globalvisionsharing.net, is will be thriving as of September and October this year, because we had a wonderful website, but as I mentioned to you in our communication, we had to close the website because it has been hacked by Russian hackers, cyber hackers. So we had to go offline, but we'll produce a new one as of September, October. And the dream is, and the passion and the commitment is to go within companies. And as I mentioned, and to leverage change within companies, but not only at all levels of the company, also top level, middle management, and the work floors. So, but in order to do that, you have to speak to the heart of the people, also at top management. And as I mentioned before, we had two wonderful conferences, one in Budapest, in my hometown, because I was born in Budapest, Hungary, in 2016. It was at the headquarters of the only ethical bank in Budapest, the Magnet Bank. And we had a wonderful gathering of 80, 90 people. The CEO was there, the HR manager was there, and the financial manager was there. And a lot of coaches were there. And we shared about this new kind of vision that we could infuse into the companies. And it was a magical 1 day of sharing. We had the same conference in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. So and I'm a simultaneous interpreter in 5 languages, so I speak as well English, French, Dutch, German, and Hungarian, and I have a good overview of what's being done worldwide. So the dream and the commitment of globalvisionsharing.net is to create a great network of networks and to bring networks together, that they work together. Because unless this happens, very few things will change. Because the mainstream is still driving profit, etc., etc. I don't have to explain that, do I? Is it an answer to your question, sir?
Thank you very much. And now we have another one from Mr. Muhammad Abbas. The question is, thank you very much for this inspirational presentation. Could you please tell us what are the social values to be accomplished in this ERA, ethical responsible action?
Social values. I already mentioned that a couple of times in my presentation. So what are social values, sir? How do you define social values?
Mr. Abbas, since he has posted in the box, so I'm not sure if he'll be able to respond back quickly.
Yeah. So, I can elaborate a bit more on that if you like. Social value. What is social values are to me? People are working together, and people are social beings. But people are also spiritual beings, and I stressed the importance of going beyond a level and to elevate the frequency of each human being, because social values, we can have empathy, that's already important, but if like it is the case mostly today is still in business, that people are trying to hide from one another the passions they have, because they have to, most of them have to execute what's being coming from upstairs, from higher levels of the management. So it's to me it's very important that the human being, as a complete human being, goes to the workplace, and not that you wake up in the morning and now you put your hat on. Now I go to my workplace and I will be that person in that workplace. That's a very confined picture of a human being, and unfortunately in this command and control still a system of managing. Very few people are allowed to express themselves fully. So this is what I meant by transcending social values and to shift into spiritual values. Are there still any questions left?
Well, another caller raised a hand, so let me go straight. We have, okay, oops, sorry. Let me try back. We had Jarka.
Okay, I know.
Hello, Jarka Chia. Can you hear us? Raise your hand.
I can.
Oops, she muted herself. Jarka, you muted yourself, so could you please unmute yourself? Yes, Jarka, you're unmuted now.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Please introduce yourself and ask us.
I'm Jarka. I'm calling from Brussels. I'm European, and hello to András, who invited me 2 days ago to join.
Hello.
So, hello. Thank you.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a practical question.
Yes.
So far, we have heard something which I think, or at least I do, and I hope many people do agree, what are the problems, where we want to head. What would be the practical steps of an individual, say to one who goes to work and doesn't express himself or herself fully?
Yes.
Or the ones who lost a job because he or she expressed herself fully?
Yes.
To be a contributing part to the universe and to herself or himself. Thank you.
Yes. That's a very good question, and that's the pivotal question of all, and that's why I already stressed in my presentation that the crisis we are living today is not an economic crisis. It's a sheer crisis of the human spirit. It's a human being is in crisis, and so for the person who goes to work and to express him or herself fully, a few things are needed. The person has to be confident in himself, in his potentialities. First, he has to be not driven by fear to express himself or herself. All this demands a turning within to confront oneself. What are the values I value most? What are my priorities in life? What do I seek in the workplace? Is it only to gain some money to pay the bills, or do I seek more? Do I seek human fulfillment also? So these are all questions which people, when they want to change themselves, have to ask themselves. Otherwise, nothing will change. People go to work every day and execute the functions and the tasks they are assigned with, and at the end of the day, they are coming at home stressed out, and they go on Facebook and on Twitter and etc. So this demands a complete reshifting of the image you have of yourself. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand, and I have some follow-up questions, if I may.
Yes, you have.
So, first of all, not everybody is in the comfortable situation that doesn't need that income. One needs to pay a rent and then buy food in the supermarket and pay electricity.
That's correct.
That's the minimum. Would you then support this minimal income that some big organizations are currently working on, that every person gets some money on a monthly basis, irrespective whether he or she works?
Yes, I would support it, but I would also encourage people. If you give people an income, then there are two sides of it. That frees people, gives people more time and more free space to eventually to do some other things. But it could also mean that people are satisfied with the money they get, and they are getting lazy, and they are etc. This two sides of the coin. You see, when people have no employment, some money from the state and from the government, and this is not this does not inspire people to evolve, you know. But of course, I also mentioned that people who live at outlaws of society would should be integrated also. There should be more listening to people also in the care industry. So many people are having burnouts, having brain out, nervous breakdowns, and instead of listening to their problems, and because everybody is the same, we are in the same boat. We have the same thoughts, we have the same emotions. We learn from one another, but the divide between the people is too big. We have the very wealthy people, and the middle classes is appearing, and the people on the workplace who has to perform are not listened to. So this calls for a whole humane approach of the problem.
I completely agree with you, Andras, that society is splitting on two sides. One, the very rich or very exhausted, and the one with no rich and less exhausted, or exhausted to get back to the system to pay the bill.
Yeah, but the irony and the paradox is that there's so much abundance on this planet. This planet is a magical place, and there's enough for everybody. But the division is not equally balanced, and this has to be addressed. Otherwise, nothing will change.
So let's say, what would you recommend to the person who goes every day to the European Commission as an employee?
I would recommend that he
satisfied, or she.
Or I would recommend that he has the guts and the courage to question also the institution. When he works for a boss, that he has the courage to go to the boss and to say, I see it differently, and allow me to express my different viewpoints. Because if you don't do that, and you execute only what has to be executed, you are only a part of the system, and we can only change the system from inside. We cannot replace the system yet. The system has to be replaced from inside, and the key levers of the change are the people. So the people has to voice their concerns and to step up and to have the courage to express themselves, which is by the way happening more and more nowadays.
So let's say if this person, let's call him Joe, goes to his boss in the commission and says, Mr. Boss, I'm not happy, I very politely let me express my view, Tata.
Yes.
Should Joe say that at the end, I'm happy to do what you told me, but let me express my views and my point of view, that you are aware of it?
Of course, Joe could do that, and Joe should have the courage to do that, and Joe should also point out that what is the added value of his opinion to his boss, and perhaps the boss will then have a second opinion and see that Joe has more in him than he thought he would have in him. So
about sharing, shining, supporting, mentoring.
Yes.
It doesn't always work. There are some people who take things for granted, and they will develop this entitlement mentality.
Yes.
And I would like a situation where people should be responsible for their own action when I, as a leader, give them all these things that you are asking me to give.
Yes.
How do we ensure that people don't take us for granted and they don't deliver?
Okay, that's a good question, sir. And a wise leader, not a knowledgeable, but a wise leader, who gives confidence and who gives people who allows people. Of course, he gives instructions because things have to be done, and the company has to sell products and services. So things has to be done. But if he shows that he respects his people fully, then the people will not abuse of this respect, and the people will be happy. I think I experienced that in my lifetime or already. So the level of contentment of the people is very important. If people sense that you, like, for instance, allow me to give you I'm a musician, I'm a violinist, and when you experience a concert, you have a director who is directing the orchestra, and you have 90 people working together, and when they intuitively sense that the director of the orchestra gives them the freedom to play, but also the freedom to play together. And he is not a hierarchical leader, is not a terrorist, but he lives. You understand what I'm saying? When 90 people play together in a concert and they listen to one another because they have to, then you have a symphony. When they don't listen to each other, you have a cacophony. And then the leader should be also a follower, because we all are leaders and followers. We all learn from one another. And a good leader is the one who listens to first to himself, listens into himself, to his intuition, and listens carefully to what people have to say to him. And then out of this listening comes a dialogue, and not a clash of opinions, like it's most of the time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Muhammad Mustafa, for your question. Now, that really brings us towards the end of the webinar. Mr. Andres, any quick remarks that you'd like to give before we dismiss out? Really quick, as we are pressing the time now.
Yes, I would thank you for having organized this webinar, and for the audience to have listened to it. And as I told in the beginning, it was an honor to present this presentation, and everybody who attended will get the full text of my presentation as a PDF. And I hope in the PDF all my data are on it, so my personal email, etc. And I wish that we stay in contact. You can ever reach me on email, on Skype, and I'm delighted to follow up this webinar with questions and with insights and with sharing. I thank you very much for listening, and I hope to welcome you and to be in touch with you in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andres. I really want to thank you on behalf of the Madinah Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship for taking the time to deliver this live webinar, which indeed turned out to be quite interactive and indeed a very intriguing one. So with that note, I would like to end and conclude. So you all have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling from. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.